Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pilot episode of my solo channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about some stories that maybe you never heard from the Civil War. One including a general that mailed in his amputated leg, presidents being gone to battlefield during a gunfight, Confederates in a hot air balloon, and a heist that would have done numbers if it was on social media in today's time. All that and more here on the Condor Chronicles. Let's go ahead and start with General Daniel Sickles, who could easily be identified as one of the most chaotic individuals, not just during that time, but in the whole history of America. During the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863, Sickles did not listen to orders and went ahead and marched his men uh, towards a orchard, straight into the line of a Confederate artillery. He was blasted by cannon fire and he was struck in his right leg, which then shattered, and doctors had to amputate it right there on the field. But Sickles, he wasn't done. Uh, he went ahead and had his leg preserved. Um, he had it preserved and he boxed it up and he mailed it to the Army Medical Museum in DC. It's actually still there to this day, which is truly crazy in my opinion. It's wild. He visited his leg, kind of like if you had a dead relative or I don't know, a pet, someone that you go to visit to sit there and think about your memories with this individual, with this person or this pet. He would treat his leg like that. He would go and visit his leg like it was a dead loved one. He didn't just go once. He went many times, and he actually brought friends with him. He brought guests. Imagine somebody walking up to you and just saying, "Hey, you want to come with me to go visit my leg and drop some flowers off?" That would be insane. But that's not really the craziest part about General Sickles. Before the war, he actually shot his wife's lover, who she was having an affair on him with. This man, or the supposed lover, he is the son of Francis Scott Key. But General Sickles wasn't convicted of murder. He didn't get charged. He wasn't locked up. Nothing. He beat the case. He's actually one of the first individuals, if not the first, to use the insane plea. He stated that he was temporarily insane in the moment and acted out by insanity. So they let him off. So this man wasn't just a general. He was someone, he was a murderer. He became a general. And then he became a one-legged man that would occasionally go and visit the other leg. He's a crazy guy. Not the craziest guy in American history, but one of them. Shout out General Sickles, I guess. Now let's get on to the early aerial warfare used in the Civil War. So the Union and the Confederacy, they would experiment with hot air balloon usage to send spies up to spy on each other's camps to see how many troops there are, or their formations, or how they did things. Basically, like a playbook or a game plan. Uh, Imagine if you're playing sports, take basketball for instance, you watch game film on your opponent to see what they do, see their mechanisms, see, you know, what their favorite move is. Do they like to drive with their left? Do they like to drive with their right? Do they like to shoot a lot? Do they like to drive a lot? Do they like to pass a lot? So on and so forth. They would treat it like that. So the ones in the balloons would go up with telescopes and some sketch pads to draw, write down what they saw. They would use binoculars as well. But one day, whenever the Confederacy was trying to do this against the Union, they had a slight to major problem. The spy balloon, is what they were called. One of the tethers broke, so it started to drift. It didn't start drifting back towards the Confederacy. It started drifting towards the Union territory. So these Confederate soldiers were in there, basically flying blind straight into enemy territory. And this is during the Civil War. It was no holds barred. They didn't care. Brother, nephew, father, son, cousin, friend. It didn't matter. It was on sight. No matter when they saw you, no matter where. So you could just imagine what they were feeling in that moment when they realized they were floating towards their enemy. So the person inside, obviously they didn't have a parachute. They didn't have a wheel. They couldn't just turn the balloon around. They were just floating, just helplessly. They didn't know if they were going to be captured or not, if they were going to be killed. You couldn't just jump off. You were about 100 feet in the air, so you were either guaranteed death or broken legs, just like General Sickles. So it was a lose-lose situation. So without all these tools to get out or to jump out or to do anything, the Confederate soldier that was inside the balloon decided to get on the tether rope that snapped and slide down. It was just floating helplessly in the air. So he decided to drop down and he just hung on and prayed until he knew that he was close enough to the ground where he could jump down or fall down without sustaining fatal injuries. I've never ever heard of hot air balloons being used in the Civil War. I mean, I think it's a little crazier than actually it's not. General Sickles is insane. I'm not even going to compare that. Um, but if you didn't know, now you know. There were Confederate soldiers in the sky, floating, just hanging on for dear life, heading towards the Union territory. Civil War, I weird times, but exciting times, and they gave us some pretty good stories. But we got some more for you. All right, now let's get into this train chase or this train heist. So in April in 1862, there's a Union spy named James J. Andrews who led 22 volunteers behind the enemy lines in Georgia. Their mission was to steal a Confederate locomotive, sabotage the rail lines, and cut off Southern supply chains to go ahead and help the Union try to win this war. So they dressed up as civilians and they snuck into Marietta, Georgia, and they just straight up jacked a train called the General. So after hijacking this train, they went ahead and head north. They went ahead and yanked up the tracks, cut all the telegraphing wires, and they tried to burn all the bridges. Absolute insanity for 1862. You would only hear about this kind of stuff in today's time, in my opinion. So this is absolutely insane. But, the Confederacy, they weren't just going to let that slide or let that happen. So a Confederate crew went ahead and chased him on foot, jumped on a handcar, and then they went ahead and pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped to chase them down. Once they didn't catch them on the handcar, obviously. They went ahead and got on another train and chased the train that the Union soldiers were on. Like this is a high speed chase in a police cruiser against a civilian in a sedan. It's so crazy. It's insane. So it was basically like an action movie almost. So eventually, the Union soldiers they ran out of steam and they were caught. 8 out of those 23 were executed. Sadly, some escaped, um, and the ones that did escape, they were awarded the Medal of Honor. They went ahead and literally risked their lives going on a high speed chase between two trains. I guess it doesn't get better than that whenever it comes to these crazy stories because I one did not know that. Bold move. Shout out to those Union soldiers and rest in peace to the ones that were executed for their actions. Definitely didn't go unnoticed. When we think of Abraham Lincoln, we usually think of 4 score and 7 years ago, and you know that speech. I don't by heart, but we all know which one it is. We think of that. We don't think of Abraham Lincoln actually being in danger during the war. But in July of 1864, there were Confederate troops in a surprise raid near Washington, D.C. So, Union soldiers went ahead and rushed to defend Fort Stevens, which is a few miles away from the White House. So, Abraham Lincoln decided, you know what? I'm going straight to the front lines. He definitely didn't sound like that. But that's basically what he said at that point. He went ahead and he climbed the fort wall to get a good view of the fighting. And you know what happened? Some Three Stooges type stuff. He went ahead and fell in, and he was being fired at by Confederate soldiers. So, an officer named Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., went ahead and yelled at Abraham Lincoln. Not these words exactly, but what I would say in the situation. Hey, bro, what are you doing? Get down, you idiot. Why are you here? That's basically what he said to him. So just imagine the president himself being with you while you're in the middle of battle and he just pops up out of nowhere. Luckily, he wasn't hit, but this is also, 1864. So people had the aim of, I don't even know, Ray Charles, you know, nobody could hit the side of a barn really. You just had to fire a cannon into wherever you heard gunfire from and just hope for the best that you would get your enemy. But isn't that pretty crazy though about Abraham Lincoln? One of the greatest presidents ever. But I didn't know that he liked to get down and dirty like that. So again, in this case, shout out Abe Lincoln. Let's get into the weirdest one that I've seen yet. This one is about an exploding cigar that was used in an assassination attempt. So this story goes: Confederate agents they were desperate to go ahead and make the Union, scared or fear them. So they came up with a scheme. Again, some Three Stooges type stuff. So these Confederates get together and they're basically like, "Hey, you know what? Let's get some cigars and throw some gunpowder up in there, and we'll give it to the Union generals and tell them that it's a gift." So one of these people that they're wanting to give these cigars to was Ulysses S. Grant. The Ulysses S. Grant. I don't know what they were thinking. So they're thinking, oh, yeah, we definitely got this guy now. He's over. He's done with. But you know what happened? The cigars never exploded. But there were some parcels that did. So the way that these were designed were that there were chemical fuses inside the cigars that would go ahead and cause it to explode. basically, in simple terms. So, this being one of the earliest forms of terrorism, as well as terror warfare, and it kind of worked on the Union because in their heads are thinking, oh my, if I would have taken a hit off of that cigar, my head would have been blown into thousands of pieces. So, thankfully, none of them really were. We all know how the Civil War turned out. Those explosive cigars didn't really stop the Union. So, and Ulysses S. Grant, luckily, didn't die and went on to, become very successful after the war, as we all know. But, this makes you think maybe we should shake our cigars a little, before we celebrate. Because who knows who could have tampered with them. Well, there they are. Some of the weirdest, craziest, unbelievable stories about the Civil War. Some of you might have already known now that I think about it. I definitely didn't. I usually just focus on Ulysses S. Grant because he's one of the funniest, one of the funniest characters in American history. Whenever I think about the Civil War, I think of him. But I hope that maybe some of you guys learned a little bit about this, about the Civil War. Maybe some of you did know about this, especially the train high speed chase or the cigar assassination attempt on Ulysses S. Grant that smoked like a chimney every day. So, actually, a good plan by the Confederates, but poorly executed. Some Looney Tunes type stuff. Some Wile E. Coyote. It's probably how they felt. But again, thank you all for watching. This is the pilot. There is more to come. Some more videos like this. There's going to be some history videos. There's going to be some videos about sports history, some what ifs, and current sports, obviously. Thunder Up. And obviously, well, not obviously, I don't think I mentioned it. There will be some episodes about the gospel on here. Especially in my opinion, I'm going to be sharing some stories that I find absolutely hilarious in the Bible. Because let's be for real, God is funny. Jesus is funny. Hysterical. There are some hysterical moments in there. But that's not all I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on the stuff that, people aren't comfortable talking about. I'm going to try and help make it simple because I'm not going to say that I understand or that I'm an expert whenever it comes to the Bible. But I'm going to try and help simplify it for those that don't really know Christ. I want to help make it simpler for those that want to understand and want to welcome Jesus into their hearts. And I will try my hardest to make that happen. But I hope you all have a great week, have a great night, have a good morning, whatever time you're watching this at. I just hope you have a great time. And I hope this video is a great time for you. This is the Condor Chronicles.